Welcome back to the Gray Report. I'm your host, Spencer Gray, CEO of Gray Capital, joined again by Dr. Matt Bosnagel, Director of Communications and Marketing here at Gray Capital. Matt, we're talking about tariffs. We're talking about multifamily. We're talking about inflation. We're talking about an uncertain world.
Yeah.
You've been digging into this tariff business
As much as I can.
I mean, the whole market thought that this wasn't actually going to happen.
Yeah.
And thinking that these are just negotiating tactics. Mm-hmm. And we said previously on this podcast that, look, some of that is going to be true. It's negotiating tactics, but because the market believes that now, it's because Trump is some of a conscious actor. He knows that he has to make his threats real in order to actually get the concessions that they are pursuing. So I don't think it means that everything's going to last forever. But he at least has to convince the entire world that, hey, we're serious when we talk about these tariffs. And the market is reacting today. I mean, major sell-offs across the major indices. And Treasury rates, specifically the 10-year Treasury, has been coming down over the last several weeks. We talked about it last week. Even more today, in kind of the low 4% range. Yeah. This week also, we had a print from the Atlanta Fed on their GDP Now showing possibly negative GDP growth for the month of February. Then
they're going to change how they're calculating it. So.
Probably, but we went from being in an environment where we're saying no more rate cuts, we're going to see more inflation, to all of a sudden maybe we have negative GDP growth, and maybe somehow tariffs, maybe they could be inflationary, maybe they could be deflationary if they reduce growth overall, and could it even push us into a little bit of a recession that some say we've needed for a while. Matt, you've been digging into this. What's your take?
Well, just to reference what you were saying before about whether it's a negotiating tactic or not, there is some analysis that we'll cover today that covers like how much is this a kind of bargaining chip, or how much is this like a deep-seated it is its own end kind of thing. And I think there are some tariffs that you can't count out for that. I also think at the same time, he's very responsive to changes in the market or even opinions. However, if you think back up to 4 years, we did not see severe tariffs, and there was also a more vociferous opposition to the idea of tariffs from Republicans. Now I think that Trump is more in control of the party. He's not going to see that opposition, but he may hear from it in terms of like the Dow Jones numbers and the S&P numbers and all that kind of stuff.
I wonder if they've got like the real econ and math, and then they've got the Trump econ and math, because they're not necessarily the same. I mean, just like from the core concept of like who pays the tariffs, there hasn't been like an acknowledgement of how that actually works. That it's like the importers, the American companies that are importing goods are paying the tariff, not the countries that are manufacturing it. It encourages then onshore manufacturing and purchasing of American goods, but there's that disconnect in just like the reality and the definition. And it seems as though also that there's someone is mentioning the nuance, whether it gets fully taken into
it is interesting in a lot of the defenses of the tariffs. I don't hear that much on like we're going to build factories here, so that's going to make it cheaper. They gloss over that a little bit. They emphasize on like no, the people that are importing it, or I'm sorry, the people that are exporting it to us, they're going to lower their own prices. Like that's not going to happen. If anything, what happens is you kind of encourage us to build factories here, but guess what? You can't do that in even like a year. That takes like many years, and so there's no way.
Some of it started during COVID, and even before, with the original Trump tariffs. There were some companies that made decisions then that are coming to fruition now. But you're right. It's you make that decision, that strategic decision of we're going to reallocate manufacturing from one country to the other. That's a multi-year process. But even yesterday, there was a major announcement from Honda that they were going to be moving manufacturing of the Honda Civic, or a large part of the manufacturing, from Mexico to Indiana, which was exciting. From being a Hoosier, it was great to hear. But what offsets that is, Indiana is also a big manufacturing state, big steel producer. So, effective steel prices, if the price of steel goes, down, that certainly affects, jobs in Indiana, in general, manufacturing in general. But then also farming and agriculture. which is, like Indiana's largest export, soybeans in particular. China has already reacted to a tariff on soybeans,
Yep.
which they also did back in the first Trump administration. So it's this patchwork of different policies from different countries related to different industries that affect different regions. But then, there's, again, the downside of, like tariffs on soybeans. But then there's the upside of like, well, maybe we get a new factory here or there.
Yeah.
And, are we talking about the couple of jobs? And again, like my family, owns farms. I've, worked on farms. So, they're definitely empathetic to farmers. But, we're talking about dozens of, handful of jobs here versus thousands of jobs manufacturing over there in their large markets.
I think that the effects are going to be really complicated. There are so many materials that move back and forth that it just seems like so incredibly inefficient. You're paying for all that, and another thing is like, and this is in some of the sources discuss this, all these relationships, all these contracts, all these deals that were made previously, how you're going to source this thing, how you're going to, the supply chains involved. When you're flip-flopping like this, or just the idea of it being flip-flopped, like, that's not a good idea. So now they have to change, and then they got to change back, and that's delays, that's time, and that's money.
It's uncertainty.
Yeah. So that uncertainty itself, it's already happened. That has already happened where people have paid more because they don't know what's going to happen. There was a recent January, like if this was like a producers materials, like construction materials, they collected it. You referenced this earlier, and I was like, I can't find it, and then I did find it. But the rebar was expensive because people were maybe, they're looking forward is what they're doing. And so trying to pay up this premium means, well, because you think it's at risk, and so here it is. There's the risk premium by not knowing whether there's going to be a tariff or not, and because people don't know there's a tariff, then they'll kind of almost assume it's going to be a little more expensive because on the whole they'll want to hedge their bets. So just like toilet paper hoarders, people are willing to pay up, and they're going after things that are going to be threatened. That's already higher prices. So
yeah, I mean, if you're a supplier, you're importing, you're going to start adjusting your prices today. And so, that, I guess that's where I come down to of like, how do I assess this? Is that related to housing, related to multifamily, is that it's not going to be cheaper to build apartments going forward than it was previously.
And
tariffs aren't going to make anything cheaper. And there's a high probability that it's going to increase the cost of construction. Not again at the immigration piece, but a lower supply of labor also increases the cost of production. So we're having building costs increase where many developments right now just don't pencil because the high cost of financing and equity isn't available, and interest rates are so high. So where we've already seen starts decline dramatically, I'd have to expect that we'll see further declines of starts. So we're looking now.
Permitting's down.
Permitting is down. So when we look into the future, we're looking at less apartments being delivered, which is unfortunate because we need to build more housing. But from a pure investment standpoint, when we look at acquiring properties today, if we have a hold period that's 5 to 10 years long, it starts to become interesting because there's not going to be any new supply coming in the market, and there's still going to be demand for housing. That doesn't go away; it's inelastic. And incomes still today, income growth is strong. Like income growth is surprisingly strong.
This is where the real risk of whole economy, if the whole economy gets turned down, that may not be the case, but currently
true.
Yes.
100%. But there's not necessarily, wages usually go down during a recession. But if we have a little bit of more of a technical recession, a real recession this time, but still technical, because we have a confluence of government spending being reduced. A lot of GDP growth has been from government spending the last several years. So we have a reduction in government spending, but also just a general slowdown related to tariffs. But we could be in an environment, but there's still demand for services. I mean, we still need to hire workers. We could see 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. qualifying as a recession without the like economy absolutely crashing. I mean, again, there's always a scenario that's worse, but I also see a scenario where we go through a period of like, again, just growth slows down because we're reordering the economy in the United States, but also like the global trade order. Like that's being potentially reshuffled right now. I mean, I was listening to Bloomberg earlier today, and that's what's being discussed. It's not just tariff here and tariff here. It's we have to rethink trade in general. Now maybe it all gets reversed next week, and we go back to what we've been doing. But assuming that this will go on at least for like the medium term, or some of these are going to hang on, or even if just this threat hangs out there, and so people decide, I just don't want to live through that again. I want to insulate myself from future downside. That just reordering and reshifting, just like in COVID, everyone was a reshuffling of how, the economy was turned off. And that reshuffle immediately caused a recession just because we didn't do anything for a couple months. Obviously it's a different extreme, but when you reshuffle everything,
that costs money.
It costs money. There's inherent inefficiencies going from one system to the other.
Like the guy that was taking all of the copper from China, or the steel from China or whatever. That guy. Well, we're not doing that anymore. So you lost a job. Like that. Actually, that's gonna happen. Easy. It's just. You're right. We did see it, and just the transition itself cost a lot of people because there were ways of life that no longer were the same.
There's niche industries, niche position, that aren't going to be relevant anymore. Now, new opportunities, like if we're building more things here or elsewhere, there's going to be new jobs that are created. But just like we're talking about, AI and the transition to more AI in the economy and more AI jobs, is it just the jobs don't necessarily go away, they just transition, but then there's this transition time of what happens in between. That could be.
And again, we are early into this, 1 month into the presidency, 1 day as of this recording into the tariffs, which like you said, kind of to remain a negotiating tactic, the tariffs have to be felt as real. So we're not allowed to know for sure whether they're going to be forever or whether they're going to be temporary, because you can't give away the game. I will run down them, and we have them on the screen here.
What's real?
So in effect right now, as of now, in effect February 4th was a 10% tariff on all imports from China, and now in effect is a 25% tariff on all imports from Mexico, a 25% tariff on most imports from Canada, which with a lower rate for energy, and an additional 10% on all imports from China, and then planned. We got so get excited. If you love tariffs, get excited, because we have a whole schedule for you. Planned for March 12th is a 25% tariff on aluminum and steel, and on April 2nd, a unspecified tariff on all agricultural products, and this is in the category of world, by the way, and also an unspecified tariff on all foreign cars. And then in the grayer proposed area, we've got an investigation into copper imports and lumber imports. So a lot across the boards, a lot of different ways to slice it. I think that, again, I hate to say it, to describe how many industries this will affect, not just home builders, which we'll get into specifically, but how, at every stage you're sending something across and back, and how they're going to implement this even is kind of mind-boggling. I don't know how that even gets done. Is it good? It may create some jobs of people that have to be the ones that, assess this.
Said the External Revenue Service they're going to create, which I think.
Oh, okay. There you go.
But they're going to fire half the IRS agents and make them XRS.
Wow.
Agents. Because the concept is that there was a period in the nation's history where we didn't have an income tax really for a big chunk of our nation's history, and we relied on revenue from tariffs. But the federal government was a fraction of what.
Sheep on the lawn era of American government. Sheep on the White House lawn era.
Exactly. Before we had a real standing army. So things have changed, and the whole world economic system also has largely changed.
Yeah.
Like, we're not on a gold standard anymore. We're on, fiat, reserve currency,
Yeah.
the U.S., petrodollar. So it's like things have changed a little bit.
And that's what I can't keep getting past is like, you work with what you got, basically. Like, it is a little bit of a wish fulfillment to think that people will just eat this cost for tariffs. Like, these are pretty dramatic. And
I was
Yeah.
reading some research that it's not as though there is a lot of data that shows that importers do not pass 100% of the cost
Yeah,
on to
yeah.
consumers. That there can be a range of where they will eat it up to an extent to continue.
Yeah, I think I
market
talked
share.
about that. Maybe it was when Jay Reader was in here. They used a case study of something like it was like washing machine tariffs. So it was during Obama era, and yeah, the importers or however you talk, the people bringing the stuff into the country did eat a little bit of it.
Yeah.
But
It's just tough because I'm just such a free market guy, and I just don't think there should be like I think we should just be able to trade with like individuals anywhere, like just
Yeah.
countries get out of the way, government get out of the way, let us buy stuff, let us sell stuff. We're gonna have like the most efficient markets, we're gonna have cheaper goods, and there's gonna be jobs for everybody. But like, the reality is like we do live in a world with trade restrictions and tariffs, and other countries have tariffs on the United States, and this idea of like, well, we're not going to accept the current tariff regime, the paradigm that the world is using. We have the most leverage. We've got we've got most of the nuclear weapon. Well, we've got enough nuclear weapons. We've got all the aircraft carriers.
Yeah.
We have the world's reserve currency, and we just want to throw our weight around to maximize our position.
Yeah.
And see what we can get because we're just not happy, and everyone has just been too nice over the last couple of decades. Just saving face and happy diplomacy, and see you at the next state dinner. And Trump doesn't care about he's got to break a couple eggs. You want to make an omelet, and I think I understand the strategy. It's just like it kind of goes against my core beliefs in regards to economics and how we should think about the economy and dealing with other countries.
Yeah.
But if I take myself out of my like core, the first principles and what I actually believe, it's like, okay, I think there is a strategy.
Yeah, no, I think that there is a strategy what Trump's doing, but I also think that it wasn't like a 100% like cost to us to be able to have our aircraft carriers going around the world, to be this this country with a large S, to give so generously and to maybe suffer these tariffs or whatever. We still do have the indisputable position right here. It just raises a lot of unknowns, and that's why I don't know if I'd like to do it or even test it.
Well, and it comes back to, and then we're getting into more like geopolitics, and then we can get back to real estate.
Yeah, we'll go to the housing market or CRE market.
But it's do we the United States has wanted to be like the better person, like the adult in the room, and like we don't have to maximize our position at every corner, even though the broader strategy did, because we ended up just being in control of everything. But we'll play nice to be in control.
To be in control. That's what I kind of thought about it for sure.
But now we're like, no, we're not gonna do the playing nice thing anymore.
Yeah.
And so how the rest of that goes?
Do we lose control?
And then there's do we want to control everything?
Yeah.
And it comes to these deeper questions of, again, from whether being the policeman of the world to like running, world diplomacy, but then if not us, then who? Is it Russia and China? Or do we live in a, multipolar world, bipolar, or just, it's just one superpower. We're going to be the big empire and we're going to do it all. Because we believe we have some moral authority, which I don't know where we get it. But besides being the best country, we've got a great constitution and good people. But man,